Okay, so I will start. Thank you for the invitation to this seminar. It's great to be able to share our work from Finland. So I will talk about the benefits of adding physical activity to the school day. This is close to what Ulla was showing before the break. Same topic. I will share our research that we do in the Finnish Schools on the Move program, what we do, and a bit of what we have found. So our research has two purposes in the Schools on the Move program. One of them is to follow up on the activities and progress of the program, and the other one is to do research that helps with the implementation of the program. And this research is, for example, who is physically active, who is physically inactive, are they girls, boys, or which groups are more active than the others, and when are those active and passive moments during the day, and then also what would be the tools that would help in activating the pupils in schools. So the aims that our goals are to increase knowledge in the field of physical activity in schools. Also, really importantly, to get the experiences and views from the teachers. As you heard previously from Ulla, it's really important to actually know what happens in the schools, not just in numbers, but also the stories and the opinions. And then also to evaluate the progress and effects of different actions at the school level. And then when we do our surveys and our measurements and our research, then the idea is that we feed those results back to our funders and the actors at the school and municipality level. And then also this way we can develop the program to be more effective. So we have follow-ups at the national level, where we actually, as Likes Research Institute Center, we do not do the national surveys. However, we've done municipality level, so city and municipality level interviews and surveys. And then at the school level, also we have interviewed and surveyed the school staff, and also the school staff, they have their own evaluation surveys that I will show you in a minute. And then at the student level, we've done research where we've had surveys, physical activity monitoring, fitness measures, and also looked at their school grades. So some of the topics that we're interested in are, of course, physical activity, but also connected to learning, then participation and involvement, as Ulla was talking about ownership of the children in schools. It's really important also in Finnish Schools on the Move. And then school enjoyment and the different processes at all levels. And then our research results we share in presentations like this one, in brochures that we give to the schools, in different reports, in master's theses, in students' theses, and then in scientific papers. This is kind of a summary of the self-evaluation tool that the schools get. So the idea is they have about 50 questions on 9 different sections that they fill once a year. And the idea is they have questions like this example, are you encouraging pupils to actively commute to school? And then they can answer on the grade of from 0 to 4. And then once they've filled the survey, the tool they get a visual summary of their results. And the idea is that with these results, they then can evaluate their own progress, and then also to get new ideas on different actions that they themselves have not yet taken into action. So a little bit about physical activity measurements. So we use accelerometers that we measure normally for about 1 week with the children. And from those measurements, the children get their own feedbacks. They can see what the general level of activity is, and then they can compare their own activity to that. And this goes to the parents as well. And the schools and the municipalities also get a feedback on the school activity levels. And these have been really useful for the schools as a motivative tools when they are changing their school culture. So here are some of our research findings. We found that in Finland, in a group of 10 pupils, elementary school pupils, about 4 out of 10 are physically active according to the 1 hour per day recommendation. And about 1 in every 10 is has very little physical activity. And we've learned that the school day or the normal day of a pupil is quite sedentary. So in secondary school, and this is in lower secondary school, already more than 70% of the day is spent sitting or standing. And of course, school has a big role in this. So in primary school, it's more than half an hour from each average hour. So this average hour includes PE classes, it includes math classes, recess, it includes lunch, everything. So you can see that they are quite sedentary, and the sedentary time increases with age. But the interesting result also is we look at the 3 different categories of pupils, those most active and those least active. What we can find is that school has a really important part, especially in the physical activity of the least active pupils. So if the size of the football here represents the amount of physical activity during the whole day, then this slice is the amount of the proportion of the physical activity that comes from the school time. So you can see that that proportion increases with, well, it's the largest in those pupils that have the least physical activity. So it's really important especially for those pupils. And we can see the importance of school time physical activity also when we look at a recent Finnish study that compared the previous spring to last spring. And you can see the previous spring is in dotted lines and last spring is the solid line. And you can see that especially during school hours, there is a large drop in physical activity in the pupils. And this probably is because in Finland, both school time and especially commuting time is really important, are really important sources of physical activity. And this is for the lower secondary school students. So here's an example of increasing physical activity for free in school time. In Finland, the general school structure is 45-minute school classes followed by 15-minute recess. And in many schools, what they have found is that if they combine 2 classes and then combine also 2 recesses, they can get more physical activity with the same recess time. And we actually measured this, and what we found is that in elementary school level, this is really true. They are much more active per minute in long recesses. However, in lower secondary school, it's not an automatic. So the reason for this is probably that in long recess, it takes some time to, for example, organize good games, whether it's football or some other yard game. And in a long recess, they have more time to organize good games. However, in the lower secondary school, you can find that they really need some extra push or some other ideas to really get them active during the recess. For example, in some schools, they have opened the gym for this long recess, which has activated the students in that age. Another example of good results that we have found is in one of the northern Finland schools, and this is lower secondary school, so students, pupils between 13 and 15. And what they found was that in a couple of years after they started building school grounds and to be more activating for the pupils, what they found was their disciplinary actions were reduced by 1/3. So it was either smoking or leaving the school grounds, for example. And this was a really positive result for them. One important point is to know that in Finnish Schools on the Move, we are trying to increase all intensities of physical activity. So not just running and jumping, but reducing sedentary time and making sitting less passive, for example. And here's what we call the evolution of sleep, which of course is also familiar to all of us adults. So there are different ways that we can then cut this progression, and we can, for example, use simple solutions that may be very cheap or even free to activate the kids and make them more focused on schoolwork. So a couple of words of physical activity and learning. There are results, the study results show that different parts of activating the children during the school day help learning in many ways. They help academic performance, cognition, and also classroom behavior, so concentrating on the task. There is a good review of this that you can download from the Finnish website. I can share the link in the chat after my presentation if you are interested. And what we have found is that the way that physical activity helps learning, there are many ways. So it can be the cognitive functioning, but also positive effects on social functioning, classroom behavior, time on task, motivation, and effort during academic lessons. And it seems that especially those breaks during academic lessons and the physical activity that's integrated to academic subjects, so this active learning, that they are associated with good learning outcomes. And so in conclusion from those results is that if you add physical activity to the school day, at least in math, it helps or never has any negative effects on performance. One important point is that Schools on the Move is not an intervention study. So we have been able to get funding from the ministry, and then the schools have been able to do whatever they want with the money. I mean, they made a plan and applied for the money with their plan, but they are solely responsible for what they want to do. So it's not like an intervention where we tell them what to do. But here are some of the positive results that we have gotten from the program. There's been more physical activity in elementary school during school day. There have been some positive changes in overall physical activity and recess activity also among the least active students. And as I mentioned, the least active students are those that we are most worried about. Also, among the grade 7 through 9, so 13 through 15-year-olds, they have started to spend more time outdoors. And also, there's been more physically active commuting to school during winter time. So even cycling is quite safe during winter time when you have the right equipment, the right tires, and the right clothing. And also, we have found greater student involvement in the planning of school activities. This is the so-called ownership. And we have asked the teachers whether adding physical activity to the school day advances school enjoyment, and almost all agree that it does. And we have also asked them whether physical activity at recess leads to more peaceful classes, and they agree. So adding physical activity to learning has really increased in Finnish schools. We find that now more than half of the teachers use those methods. And there are also other positive changes over the years, like different measures to promote physical activity, developing the school grounds, using indoor sports facilities also in academic lessons, also activating commuting to school, having these longer breaks that I showed you, or training pupils to be peer activators. So actively taking ownership of what happens during the recess is really a great idea. So in conclusion, there have been positive changes at student, school, and national level, and it requires long-term and systematic development work to change the culture at school. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. The changes are slow, but they are steady. And we have found that research has really been useful in helping the schools change their culture. And as a last point, always remember to ask the kids. One school asked the elementary school pupils what they really wanted to do in after-school programs, and one of the boys came up with this club. It's called Run Around the Yard Club. So that's a great idea that maybe the adults would not have figured out themselves. Thank you very much. And now, please, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, my name is Katia Reis. I work in Portugal. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. It was really, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I waited to see yours because the previous one, I was having some problems with the connection. So I didn't want to make questions that might not be totally true, because I wasn't able to listen quite properly. So first of all, I'm from a southern country, so I'm from Portugal. I work in Portugal, so it's a total different reality, and I'm very glad for your reality. I think we should use you as role models here to implement some of those issues here in our schools. And one question that I really would like to ask you is, how can you manage? So we could easily see that the oldest kids, so later ages between ninth grade and so 7th and 9th grade, they have much lower physical activity, and you use that thing of switching the blocks of school time in order to have more time spending with physical activity. How can you manage the mobile phones? Because I think for the youngest ones, many of them still don't have a mobile phone, but when they are grown-ups, so they start having their own mobile phone. And what we see here actually is the kids spend all the time in their mobile phones besides doing some physical activity. So that is my main question, because you can actually give some tips that we can use here, because yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a problem also in Finland. I think it's problem in most countries. I know that in some countries, maybe I've heard some schools in Germany, France, that they don't allow the mobile phones in school at all, even in the secondary education. So students that are 16 to 18-year-olds. So I think that could be one solution, but I think it's a tough fight, but I think if you can make the alternative interesting enough. So, for example, these indoor open gyms, for example, where you can sometimes find activities that the pupils enjoy enough that it wins the mobile phone. But for example, they have these. It's called. I don't know. It's in some they call it like a street fight, where they have these balls, and they build like a city on the gym with mattresses and other things, and then they can tag each other with the small soft balls and try to steal the other team's flag, things like that. That they find some things in schools that the pupils enjoy enough that they leave the mobile phones. But it's tough. Yeah, that age group is the toughest. I think it's even tougher than maybe the secondary school sometimes.
Yeah, I would say that.
And also one point that we have found in our research is that the girls a lot of times are much more passive in school time compared to the boys, even if they are not more passive on their free time. And it may be because the boys are more dominant in recess. And so what we found is that sometimes when the girls get their own space, it may not be every recess, but sometimes they get the gym to themselves. For example, they can have a dance club where they can do whatever they want. They plan their own choreographies or things like that. So those have really helped as well.
Yeah, because you have an additional issue, because your winter time, it's super dark and it's windy and cold, so you need to do all those kinds of stuff indoors always, correct? They don't go quite much outside to the playground, because
Yeah, well, the elementary school children, the children up to 12 years old, they go outside every recess, every day throughout the year. But
okay.
The older children, a lot of times they just go once a day. So yeah, they do need some indoor facilities to be active. And also in classes, and you have a longer class, then you do have to have some kind of physical activity during the 90 minutes, because it's too long to be sitting the whole time. So then they can have different kinds of active breaks or active teaching.
Great, thank you. great
Thank
presentation.
You.
Thanks.
Just to put in connection, some of the things we have seen also in this workshop and in the previous workshop, because you tackled many aspects. In the research of Gonzalo Pin, he presented last year, they also included some physical activity in the morning before the class start. They had to run over the stairs in the school, in a sense, so to activate also. You have also mentioned this active commuting, and the idea that children should move, if possible, walk or riding bikes better than be brought by car. So they help also to reactivate. And this, what Katja was also mentioning, is also like for very similar to Spain, Portugal, and we have a lot of sun, and sometimes it's very easy that children go walking to school because usually schools are quite nearby, and we have a very compact type of cities. So usually schools are by 5 to 10 minutes walking from the houses, which is not much walking. Probably would be better something a bit longer, but it's doable in a sense. There is should be less commuting in Spain than we have. But later, what I see, and we have done also some other research in ethnographies in the schools, that we lose a lot of, we do very little physical activity in the way you propose in your program. And even when it is sports lesson, no, some physical education activity, it often is very much reduced. No, it is allocated 50 minutes, but in truth, is hardly ever more than 25 minutes of real physical activity. To get ready, they are explained the activity, and then by the time they want to start doing it, it's 20 minutes, and then the class is over. No? And I think we have to start. We have to start from that, and then also include all what we can learn from your experience in terms of making breaks and get people out of the classroom, get out from the corridors to the sun in the outside of the school, and also think. And there's a lot of discussion nowadays, paradoxically, many people talking about this COVID. Children are locked in the schools, and there is more chances to get sick if you are in the same room. So we better to do more outdoor activities and bring them more to museums and do other things. But my experience is that the reaction of the Spanish schools is the opposite. In the school where my children go, the decision this year is that there are no any activity outdoors school. They will not take them to any farm or any museum or any theater anywhere because of the risk of this COVID, right? So I don't know whether you could tell us also what is the Finnish schools approach towards this going outdoors nowadays with this COVID. How are you experiencing this situation? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. You touched on many important points, and I think it's true that the active day consists of different blocks. So there are little active blocks that can be it's commuting, it's physical education, it's so many things. And about the COVID, I think in Finnish schools they do go outside during recess, so that hasn't changed. It's really recommended even, but they do leave the school grounds less during academic lessons, I think, especially if they should go out with buses or things like that. So in that sense, yeah, it's restricting, and especially when they are homeschooled, then they are not moving much at all. So it's a problem, really.
Okay, so it's more extended than okay.